From kindness that saves lives to courage that conquers giants, these 10 classic tales remind us, even the smallest act can change everything.
One bright morning, Mother Pig stood at the doorway, waving goodbye to her 3 little piggies as they set off with small bags in hand. The 3 pigs walked happily along a dusty path through fields of colorful flowers. At a fork in the road, they stopped to talk and decided each would build a house of their own. The eldest pig found a golden meadow and imagined a cozy home made of straw. He quickly began tying bright yellow bundles together to form the walls of his straw house. The second pig spotted the edge of a forest and pointed to a place rich with timber. He set to work under the sun, hammering nails and raising strong wooden beams. The youngest pig chose an open space near a hill for his sturdy brick home. With care and focus, he stacked red bricks one by one, building solid walls. Meanwhile, a hungry wolf hid behind a bush, eyeing the straw house from afar. He knocked on the door, and the eldest pig peeked out of the window in surprise. With a great huff and puff, the wolf blew the straw house to pieces, sending the eldest pig running. The frightened pig dashed toward his brother's wooden house, glancing nervously behind him. Inside, the 2 brothers watched through the window as the wolf approached. The wolf knocked again, and the pigs trembled inside. He blew with all his might, and the wooden walls flew apart as the pigs ran away. The brothers reached the brick house, and their youngest sibling quickly opened the door. Safe inside, the 3 peered out the window as the wolf prepared to blow again. No matter how hard he huffed and puffed, the brick house stood firm and unmoved. Frustrated, the wolf climbed onto the roof, looking for another way in. The youngest pig lit a fire in the fireplace and placed a pot of water to boil. The wolf slid down the chimney, his eyes widening as he saw the rising steam. With a loud splash, he landed in the boiling water, making the pigs cheer. Soaking wet and yelping, the wolf leapt out and ran far away. The pigs celebrated their safety with a joyful meal around the wooden table. Later, Mother Pig arrived and hugged her sons in the warm afternoon light. Together, they cleaned the house and fixed the door. The eldest planted colorful flowers in the garden. The second built a sturdy fence around the yard. The youngest read aloud on the porch while his brothers listened. They sang and played music together in the sunny yard. From a distance, the wolf watched with regret, never daring to come closer. That night, the silver moon shone over the brick house as the pigs slept peacefully. The next morning, they made breakfast with Mother Pig, filling the house with happy chatter. And so, the whole family stood smiling in front of their brick home under the clear blue sky.
Once upon a time, in a world touched by whispers of old magic, lived a gentle girl named Cinderella. Her heart was as warm as the summer sun, even though her days were often cold. She lived in a gloomy house with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. Every morning before the first light, Cinderella began her endless chores. She swept the dusty floors and washed heavy pots until her small hands ached. Her clothes were plain and gray, but they could not dim the kindness that shone from within her. Cinderella found comfort in the smallest creatures. She spoke softly to the birds perched on the roof. The tiny mice near the oven were her trusted friends, listening to her quiet songs. Her spirit remained bright, despite the harshness of her life. One day, a golden letter arrived at the house, sealed with a royal crest. It carried news that set the whole kingdom abuzz. The king would host a grand ball at the palace. This magnificent event was for the prince to meet every young lady in the land. The stepsisters squealed with delight, tossing ribbons into the air, their minds filled with dreams of silk gowns and sparkling jewels. They called out to Cinderella with endless demands. "Cinderella, iron my dress. Cinderella, fix this tear. Cinderella, polish my shoes until they shine." She obeyed them without a single complaint, sewing hems with care and tying laces tightly. When she finally gathered the courage to ask if she might attend, her stepmother's smile was cold. "A servant at the royal ball? Don't be foolish." With those words, they left her alone, surrounded by ashes and quiet tears. In the quiet garden, under the thin light of the moon, Cinderella whispered her deepest wish. "I only want one night to dance," she sighed, her voice barely a breath. A warm, shimmering glow rose from the very air around her. Suddenly, her kind fairy godmother appeared, her eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom. "Your heart is good, my dear," she said, her voice like soft chimes. With a gentle wave of her wand, a wondrous transformation began. Cinderella's plain rags turned into a shining gown, spun from moonlight and starlight. Her worn shoes became delicate glass slippers, sparkling like dew. A humble pumpkin transformed into a magnificent golden carriage, ready to whisk her away. Even two tiny mice became proud white horses, eager to pull the carriage. "Remember, my dear," warned the fairy godmother, her voice soft but firm. "The magic ends at midnight." The palace shone like a jewel, its windows ablaze with light. Music floated over the fragrant gardens, inviting all to dance. When Cinderella entered, a hush fell over the grand ballroom. The prince noticed her at once, drawn by her grace and radiant smile. They danced through the night, their steps light and joyful. They laughed at missed steps and spoke of simple joys. They talked of blooming flowers, the scent of fresh bread, and quiet mornings. Time seemed to vanish in their shared happiness. Then the grand clock began to strike, its chimes echoing through the hall. At the 12th chime, Cinderella remembered the warning. She fled in a rush, leaving behind a single glass slipper on the palace stairs. The next day, the prince searched the kingdom, his heart longing for the mysterious lady. Many young women tried to wear the delicate slipper, but none could. It seemed to fit no one. At last the prince arrived at Cinderella's house. Her stepsisters tried in vain to squeeze their feet into the tiny slipper. Then Cinderella stepped forward, her heart fluttering. The glass slipper fit her perfectly, as if made just for her. The prince saw her clearly for the first time, not as a mystery, but as the kind girl he had danced with. Soon she came to the palace, not as a stranger, but as herself. She forgave the past with a gentle heart, keeping her kindness always. Cinderella found joy in a love that felt like coming home. Kindness doesn't make you small. It prepares you for the moment when magic arrives.
Under the golden sun, the African savanna stretched out, quiet and vast. Tall grasses swayed gently, and birds chirped softly in the warm air. The scent of the earth filled the peaceful land. Here, beneath a wide acacia tree, a mighty lion rested. His golden mane shimmered like threads of sunlight. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was deep and slow. The king of the jungle was enjoying his nap. Suddenly, a tiny shadow darted across the ground. It was a small graying mouse, searching for food. She spotted a few seeds near the lion's massive paw. The mouse hesitated, knowing the danger, but hunger made her brave. She crept closer, her tiny feet silent on the dusty ground. 1 seed, 2 seeds, and then the lion's paw came down, trapping her. "Well, well," the lion rumbled, opening one golden eye. "What do we have here?" A little snack that walks right to me?" The mouse trembled. "Great king, please spare my life. I did not mean to disturb you." Her voice was small but steady. The lion tilted his head. "And why should I let you go? You are so small, you could not possibly repay me." The mouse took a deep breath. "One day I might be able to help you. Even the smallest creature can be useful." For a moment, the lion stared at her. Then he laughed, a deep, rolling sound that echoed through the savannah. "You? Help me? That's amusing. But you have courage, and I am not hungry today." He lifted his paw. "Go, little one. Live your tiny life." The mouse bowed her head in gratitude and ran into the tall grass. Days passed. The sun rose and set over the savannah. One morning, the lion wandered far from his territory. He was following the scent of water when suddenly a hunter's net, strong and heavy, fell upon him. He roared and struggled, but the ropes cut into his fur. No matter how he fought, the net held tight. His roars echoed far across the plains, filled with frustration and fear. And in the tall grass, the little mouse heard him. She remembered the kindness the lion had shown her. Without a second thought, she raced toward the sound. When she saw the lion trapped, she called out, "Hold still, great king! I will help you." The lion blinked in surprise. "You? But the ropes are too strong." The mouse only smiled. "They are too strong for you, but not for my teeth." She scurried to the ropes and began to gnaw. Her sharp teeth worked quickly, bite after bite, strand after strand. The lion stayed still, watching the tiny creature's determination. At last, with a final snap, the ropes broke apart. The lion stepped free, shaking dust from his mane. He looked down at the mouse. "I was wrong," he said softly. "Today, the smallest creature has saved the greatest." The mouse's whiskers twitched. "And today, the promise I made has been kept." They shared a smile under the warm sun. From that day forward, the lion and the mouse were true friends. They often met beneath the acacia tree, not as predator and prey, but as equals. Kindness is never wasted. Even the smallest friend can make the biggest difference.
Long ago, in a peaceful kingdom, a kind king and gentle queen longed for a child. But the queen fell gravely ill, and only a miracle could save her. The desperate king sent his soldiers across mountains and forests, searching for a legendary golden flower said to cure any sickness. At last, the flower was found. Its magic healed the queen, and soon she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl with hair that shimmered like sunlight. But one dark night, a wicked old witch named Gothel crept into the castle. She stole the baby away, eager to claim the magical power of her golden hair. Gothel hid the child in a tall stone tower deep in the forest. There was no door, only a single window at the very top. Whenever she wished to enter, Gothel would call, "Rapunzel, let down your hair," and Rapunzel's shining braid would fall like a golden ladder. Years passed, and Rapunzel grew into a lovely young woman. Her hair stretched for many meters, yet her heart stretched even farther, longing for the world outside. Every year on her birthday, thousands of lanterns lit up the night sky. Rapunzel watched from her tower window, dreaming of seeing them up close one day. Meanwhile, in the kingdom, a clever thief named Flynn Rider stole the royal crown and fled for his life. While escaping through the forest, Flynn stumbled upon a mysterious tower hidden among the trees. He climbed inside using Rapunzel's hair, only to be knocked out cold by a frying pan. Rapunzel stood over him, both scared and curious. When Flynn awoke, he found himself tied up with glowing golden hair. Rapunzel spoke firmly, "If you want your freedom, you must take me to see the floating lanterns." For the first time, Rapunzel stepped out of the tower. She gasped as her bare feet touched the soft grass and the warm sun kissed her face. Flynn watched with a smile. Their journey led them to a noisy tavern full of rough men, but Rapunzel's innocence and charm won them over, and soon everyone was singing along with her. Back in the forest, Gothel discovered Rapunzel's escape. Her eyes burned with fury as she vowed to take the girl back. Meanwhile, the royal guards chased Flynn and Rapunzel. The pair barely escaped as a dam burst, sending torrents of water crashing around them. Flynn was swept away, but Rapunzel threw out her hair and pulled him to safety, saving his life. Later, Flynn winced from a wound on his hand. Rapunzel gently wrapped her glowing hair around it, healing him instantly. Flynn stared in amazement. You're magical," he whispered. At last, they reached the Lantern Festival. Sitting together in a small boat, Rapunzel and Flynn released their lantern into the sky, surrounded by thousands of glowing lights. Flynn handed the crown back to her and looked into her eyes. "The greatest treasure," he said softly, "is not this crown, it's you." Suddenly, Gothel appeared from the shadows. She dragged Rapunzel back toward the tower, leaving Flynn wounded and bleeding on the ground. Rapunzel begged to stay with Gothel if it meant saving Flynn's life, but with his last strength, Flynn cut her hair short. The golden magic vanished, and Gothel turned to dust. Rapunzel wept over Flynn, and her tears brought him back to life. At last, the lost princess returned to her parents. The kingdom rejoiced. Lanterns filled the skies once more, and Rapunzel and Flynn lived happily ever after.
Peaceful countryside at sunrise. Warm golden light over green fields, soft pastel colors, gentle storybook style, distant lake glistening. Near the quiet lake, a mother duck sits in a cozy nest hidden in tall green grass, calm water reflecting the morning sky. Several small yellow eggs crack open, revealing fluffy yellow ducklings, warm sunlight touching their feathers. One large pale egg remains unhatched, mother duck watching patiently, gentle breeze in the grass. The big egg cracks and a large gray duckling appears, looking different from his siblings, soft light around them. The yellow ducklings whisper to each other, glancing at the gray duckling with curious and doubtful eyes, farmyard in background. The gray duckling swims awkwardly behind the others, while some ducklings giggle and swim away playfully. Gray duckling sits alone on the grassy shore, looking sad as sunlight glimmers on the lake surface. A proud rooster in the farmyard teases the gray duckling as it passes, colorful barn and hay bales nearby. Gray duckling slowly walks away from the farm along a dirt path, carrying a tiny bundle, autumn leaves falling. He wanders through wide green meadows, gazing up at flocks of birds flying across the blue sky. At a small pond, the gray duckling tries to join other animals, but they chase him away, splashing water. Night falls, and the duckling curls up under bushes beside the quiet pond, moonlight shimmering on the water. Morning rain falls gently, the duckling walks with wet feathers, searching for a dry place to rest. An old woman in a warm shawl sees the duckling and gently picks him up, cottage smoke rising in background. Inside the cozy cottage, a cat and a hen glare at the duckling from the corner. Wooden furniture and a warm fire. The unfriendly cat and hen chase him out, and the duckling leaves through the garden gate into the open road. Winter arrives. snow covering the fields, cold wind blowing across the frozen river. The duckling searches for food on the icy river, tiny footprints in the snow, breath visible in the air. Exhausted, the duckling lies still on the ice as a farmer in a warm coat approaches to help. The farmer brings the duckling into his warm wooden house, placing him near the glowing fireplace. When spring arrives, the duckling quietly leaves the farmer's home, walking into a bright and fresh morning. On a sparkling blue lake surrounded by blooming flowers, elegant white swans glide gracefully. The gray duckling hides among tall reeds, watching the swans with awe and longing in his eyes. In the reflection, he sees not a gray duckling, but a beautiful white swan, sunlight shimmering on his feathers. The swan spreads his pure white wings proudly, feeling the warm spring breeze. Other swans swim toward him with smiles, welcoming him into their graceful family. They swim together under the golden glow of the sunset, ripples reflecting warm colors. The once ugly duckling glides across the calm lake, head held high with joy. The swans take flight together into the clear blue sky, fluffy clouds drifting slowly. Peaceful countryside at sunset, the swans flying in the distance, the lake glowing under the last light of day.
Once upon a time, beside a crystal-clear lake, as still as a mirror, stood a splendid castle. Each morning, the golden sunlight shimmered on the water, swans glided gracefully, and flowers in the gardens bloomed with fragrance. Here lived a beautiful princess with her father, the king, and her mother, the queen. The princess especially loved her sparkling golden ball, a precious gift from her father, the king. Each time she tossed it high, it caught the sunlight and shone like a radiant jewel. One fine afternoon, the princess wandered while playing, nearing the old moss-covered well in the castle garden. Birds chirped merrily, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves, adding charm to the moment. Suddenly, her hand slipped, and the golden ball fell with a splash into the deep well. The sound echoed, and the ball vanished into the dark water. She gasped, eyes filling with tears. As she wondered what to do, ripples stirred the water, and a large frog with glistening eyes leapt up. Water splashed, and its croak echoed through the quiet garden. The frog looked at the princess and spoke. "I can bring back your ball if you promise to be my friend." She was astonished to hear a frog speak. The princess quickly nodded, eager to regain her ball. In her heart, she thought, "How could a frog ever be my friend?" The frog dove into the water, gripped the golden ball, and leapt up to give it to the princess. Droplets still glistened on its body. "Thank you," she exclaimed, rushing toward the castle, leaving the frog behind. The frog watched her go, sighing sadly. That night, under the shining moon, the frog arrived and knocked at the great castle door. The sound echoed through the quiet night. Hearing the tale, the king said sternly, "You must keep your promise, my daughter. Let him in." And so, the princess reluctantly sat down to supper beside the frog. Candlelight flickered over the long table, food smelled delicious, but she had little appetite. At bedtime, the frog whispered, "Please let me sleep upon your pillow." The princess shivered, displeased by the thought. She frowned but kept her promise. She placed the frog upon her pillow, her heart uneasy. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light filled the room. The air shimmered as if magic itself had awakened. Before her eyes, the frog transformed into a handsome prince, clad in royal garments. The princess gasped in astonishment. The prince gently said, "I was once a prince, cursed into a frog by a wicked witch." He smiled. "Because of your true friendship, the curse has been broken." From then on, they strolled by the lake, talking and laughing, watching swans glide by. One romantic evening, the prince knelt with a golden ring. "Will you be my princess forever?" Bells rang across the castle on their wedding day as crowds cheered joyfully. That night, hundreds of golden lanterns floated into the sky, lighting up the heavens. The prince and princess danced beneath the starry night,
music drifting across the courtyard. And from then on, they lived happily ever after. Their tale became a legend of true friendship and love. In the royal garden filled with blooming flowers, the young princess often came to breathe the fresh air and enjoy the peace. One morning, as she strolled among the blossoms, a little sparrow landed right before her. Its dark eyes sparkled with curiosity, while the princess gently bent down, offering a tender smile. In that moment, it felt as if an invisible thread tied the heart of the girl to the tiny creature. It was no longer mere curiosity. It was the beginning of a magical friendship she had never imagined before. After her first encounter with the little sparrow, the princess felt her heart filled with a newfound joy. The next morning, she once again walked into the vast garden where a winding path stretched through clusters of red and golden blossoms. Each step brushed against petals swaying in the breeze, as if the whole garden was smiling in greeting. Deep in her mind, she still remembered those tiny, bright eyes, and secretly wished she might meet her new friend again. Along the bright flower path, the princess suddenly heard a faint chirp. She looked around and found the little sparrow trembling beneath a flower bush. One of its wings was wrapped clumsily with a leaf. It must have been hurt. The princess's heart ached. She knelt down and gently placed millet seeds in her palm, offering them to the bird. The sparrow lifted its round eyes, filled with gratitude, and carefully pecked each tiny seed. In the golden sunlight, the image of the princess and the little sparrow seemed to form an unspoken promise of everlasting friendship. But the joy of the blooming garden did not last. Soon after, the entire kingdom was struck by a terrible drought. The ground cracked open, streams ran dry, and the fields withered. Worry spread among the people, their sighs echoing through every home. Even the radiant flowers in the royal garden began to droop, losing their vitality. The princess watched this scene with a heavy heart. She wondered if she and her little sparrow friend could do anything to save their land from despair. Day by day, the scorching sun only worsened the hardship. Villagers gathered around cracked fields, their faces etched with worry. Some held their heads in despair, some prayed silently. An old man leaned on his cane with a heavy sigh, and mothers covered their faces in quiet sorrow. Grief blanketed the land, as if hope itself was drying away. When the princess saw their suffering, her heart ached deeply. She knew she could not remain still, for the happiness of her people was also her own. In the royal palace, the king spent sleepless nights, burdened with worry. On his table lay maps of parched fields and rivers drawn dry. Advisors and villagers came one after another, pleading for a solution. Yet, despite summoning many wise men, none could bring back the water. The king rested his hand on his forehead, his eyes heavy with sorrow. He felt powerless as he watched his people grow weaker day by day, while he himself could do nothing to save them. A mournful silence weighed over the entire court. While the king remained troubled, the princess turned to her tiny friend. She cradled the sparrow gently in her hands, feeling its warmth and the faint tremble of its wings. As if by magic, the bird sang a soft melody, and in the breeze she seemed to hear words whispered. Believe in the power of kindness. Deep within the ancient forest lies a magical spring that never runs dry. The princess's eyes lit up with hope. She knew this was the path she must take to save her people. Hearing the promise from her tiny friend, the princess resolved to set out in search of the magical spring. But before she could take a step, the sparrow spread its wings and soared into the stormy sky. Dark clouds swirled, winds howled, and heavy rain poured down, yet the little bird pressed on without fear. It flew ahead as if to guide the way, carrying with it the belief that light always follows the storm. The princess watched, her heart filled with determination. No matter how difficult the journey, she and her friend would face it together. As she ventured into the ancient forest, the princess came across a poor little girl in tattered clothes, sitting sadly beside an injured butterfly. The child gently held its delicate wings, her eyes filled with sorrow. The princess watched quietly, her heart swelling with compassion. Though she had nothing, the girl still offered her kindness to the fragile creature. At that moment, the princess realized that compassion itself was the guiding light on her journey, and that anyone, even the poorest, could play a part in preserving life. The sparrow led the princess through the dense forest and stopped at the mouth of a dark cave. She hesitated, but then heard the bird's song echoing in the shadows, urging her forward. As she ventured deeper, she saw a radiant glow at the far end, sparkling like 1,000 gathered stars. In the midst of the gloom, that light carried a wondrous warmth, a promise that miracles truly existed. The princess knew she was drawing closer to the secret of the magical spring. Stepping through the radiant glow, the princess was overwhelmed by the sight of a shimmering underground spring. Clear waters trickled gently between the rocky walls, casting sparkling reflections upon the cavern. From the stream came a cooling breath that seemed to chase away all the dryness beyond. She knelt down and touched the surface. A refreshing sensation spread through her hand, as though she were holding a miracle itself. She knew at once this was the source of life that could save her kingdom. The little sparrow immediately fluttered down to the spring, eager for the refreshing waters. It dipped its beak into the stream, sending ripples across the surface like joyous light. The princess watched, her heart overflowing with happiness. The sparrow, who had borne so many wounds on their journey, was now being healed by the magical spring. In that moment, she was certain the water would not only revive her tiny friend, but was a gift of nature itself to save the entire kingdom. As the princess admired the flowing waters, the sparrow chirped excitedly and led her to another corner of the cavern. There, an ancient wooden chest stood ajar, filled with gleaming golden coins. The sparrow tilted its head, its bright eyes seeming to say, "This is not just treasure, but a reward for courage and kindness." The princess smiled softly, yet she knew that gold mattered far less than the spring's waters. What she needed to bring back to her people was life itself, not riches. When the princess brought back the magical waters, the barren fields slowly revived. Streams were shared among the villages, flowing into the farmlands, where tender shoots sprang up in lush green. Before long, golden rice swayed heavily with grain, and people everywhere harvested with joy. Laughter and song echoed across the fields, replacing the sorrowful sighs of the past. Watching her people smile again, the princess knew that every hardship she had endured was worth it. On the day the princess returned, the whole village celebrated. People rushed out to welcome her, cheering and dancing, their faces glowing with joy. In the princess's hand, the little sparrow perched quietly, chirping as if recounting their wondrous journey. The villagers gazed at her with deep gratitude, for it was her courage and kindness that had brought life back to the kingdom. Amid the jubilant cheers, the princess smiled warmly, feeling more connected than ever to her land and her people. In the palace, the king was overjoyed to see his kingdom restored. Seated upon his throne, he welcomed the little sparrow with deep gratitude. Before, the bird lay a small chest filled with gold, offered as a token of thanks. Yet the sparrow only tilted its head, chirping as if to say that it sought not riches, but peace and abundance for all. The king laughed kindly, realizing that the greatest treasure often lies not in jewels, but in compassion and true friendship. After many long and trying days, the princess once again strolled along the familiar path with the sparrow. The sky was clear and blue, the breeze whispered through the trees, and everything felt as peaceful as in the beginning. The princess smiled at her tiny friend, her heart brimming with gratitude, for their journey had taught her that true strength lies not in power, but in kindness and courage. The sparrow tilted its head as if in agreement. Between them, the bond of friendship had become an everlasting gift. In the blooming garden, the princess held the sparrow gently on her hand, her smile full of warmth. From their very first meeting to all the trials they had faced together, they had created a tale of wonder. Now, the kingdom thrived with life. The people lived in abundance, and the princess had become a symbol of kindness. The sparrow sang a clear, sweet song, like a blessing for the days to come. Its melody echoed through the garden, reminding all that wherever love is sown, happiness will always blossom.
Once upon a time, a poor miller passed away. He left a mill to his eldest son, a donkey to the second, and only a cat to the youngest. The youngest son looked at the cat and sighed, "What can I do with just a cat?" The cat smiled mysteriously, its eyes sparkling. "Master," said the cat, "buy me a pair of boots and a bag, and I will make you rich." Trusting the cat, the young man spent his last coins on shiny boots and a sturdy bag. The cat put on the boots, slung the bag over his shoulder, and strode proudly down the road. In the forest, he set a trap in the bag and caught a plump rabbit. He carried the rabbit to the king and said politely, "A gift from the Marquis of Caraba." The king was delighted and began to wonder about this Marquis of Caraba. Day after day, the cat brought fine gifts, pheasants, fish, and more, always in the Marquis's name. One day, the cat overheard that the king and princess would be riding by the river. He whispered to his master, "Bathe in the river at the right moment and leave the rest to me." When the royal carriage passed, the cat cried, "Help! Thieves have stolen the Marquis's clothes." The king ordered fine clothes for the young man. The princess blushed when she saw him. The cat hurried ahead and told the harvesters, "Say this land belongs to the Marquis of Caraba." When the king asked, the farmers replied, "This is the Marquis's land, your majesty." The cat did the same in the vineyards and cornfields, and everyone gave the same reply. The cat bowed and said, "I heard you can turn into any creature. Is that true?" The ogre instantly became a roaring lion. The cat pretended to be afraid and stepped back. "Impressive," said the cat, "but can you change into a tiny mouse?" The ogre turned into a mouse. In a flash, the cat pounced and ate him. The cat threw the doors open and welcomed the king. "Please enter the castle of the Marquis of Caraba." The king was overjoyed and gave his daughter to the young man. Puss in Boots became a noble knight and lived happily ever after.
Long ago, in a humble village surrounded by rice fields and dusty paths, there lived a boy named Ma Liang. He had no parents to care for him, no money to buy food, and no shoes to protect his feet. Yet though hunger gnawed at his stomach, his heart overflowed with dreams that no poverty could silence. While other children played with kites or marbles, Ma Liang found joy in drawing. With nothing but twigs or broken tiles, he sketched birds flying across the sky, rivers winding toward the horizon, and mountains rising like guardians of the earth. He felt alive only when his hands moved to create. Villagers often passed by, shaking their heads. "Silly boy," they said, "drawing cannot fill your stomach. You cannot eat mountains and rivers." But Ma Liang only smiled quietly. To him, each line he drew was food for the soul, richer than any meal. One night, exhausted from a long day of drawing in the dust, he fell asleep under the stars. In his dream appeared a white-bearded old man clothed in light. His eyes were gentle yet powerful, as if they had watched the world for centuries. In his hands gleamed a paintbrush. "Ma Liang," the old man whispered, "your heart is pure. Take this brush and use it to bring goodness, not greed. With a start, Ma Liang awoke. To his astonishment, the glowing brush lay in his hand, warm as if alive. He trembled, hardly daring to breathe. Was it a dream? Or had heaven truly answered the wish of a poor boy? Unsure if the gift was real, he dipped the brush into a bowl of water and drew a fish upon the ground. To his shock, the fish shimmered, blinked, and sprang alive, wriggling and splashing. His heart raced. This was no ordinary brush. It was magic. From that day, Ma Liang used the brush only to help. He painted an ox for a farmer with no plow, shoes for children with bleeding feet, buckets for weary women carrying water. With each stroke, lives grew easier, smiles returned. The village that once pitied him now called him a blessing. Word spread beyond the village. Travelers carried stories of a boy whose brush gave life. Soon, strangers arrived, begging him to draw food, tools, and hope. Though he grew tired, Ma Liang never refused the needy. But not all who heard were kind. The magistrate, a cruel lord fattened on taxes, heard of the brush. His eyes narrowed with greed. If the boy can create gold, I will own endless riches. He ordered soldiers, bring him to me. Soldiers stormed the village, seizing Ma Liang. Villagers cried, but none could stop the armored men. Dragged to the mansion, Ma Liang stood before the magistrate, who sneered. Paint me mountains of gold and rivers of silver, or rot in my dungeons. Ma Liang lowered his eyes, but spoke firmly. This brush was given to me for good, not greed. It will not serve you. His words struck like thunder. The magistrate's face darkened with rage. He was thrown into a cold, damp cell. Days stretched without food, rats scurried, shadows mocked him. Yet Ma Liang's resolve did not break. He whispered to himself, the brush must never be used for evil. Finally, the magistrate, maddened by desire, shouted, paint or die! Pretending to surrender, Ma Liang nodded. Very well, I shall paint. Soldiers brought him brush and ink, unaware of his plan. With calm strokes, Ma Liang painted the sea, endless blue stretching to eternity. The magistrate gasped at the illusion of waves crashing in the hall. Excellent! Now fill it with treasure. Ma Liang painted a mighty ship with tall sails, gliding proudly across the painted sea. The magistrate clapped like a child. Yes, yes, I shall sail to fortune. But then Ma Liang's brush grew fierce. He painted black clouds, thunderbolts, roaring winds. The painted sea churned wild. Servants trembled, but the magistrate, blinded by greed, laughed. Bring me aboard, he cried, leaping into the painted ship. At once, the storm swallowed vessel and man. Thunder roared. Waves crashed. And when the storm calmed, nothing remained. The greedy magistrate was gone forever. Free at last, Ma Liang returned to his humble village. The people embraced him, tears shining in their eyes. To them, he was no longer a poor orphan, but a guardian with the gift of heaven. From then on, he painted only what was needed. Plows for farmers, bridges for travelers, lamps for fishermen returning at night. His brush brought not riches, but comfort, and that was the truest wealth. And so, the tale of the magic paintbrush spread across the land. It taught that talent is a gift, but its worth depends on how we use it. Greed devours itself, but kindness endures, creating miracles wherever it goes. Once upon a time, in a wide green valley of Poland, there was a little village of farmers and shepherds. Life was simple but harsh, for the winters were long and the land gave little. Among the villagers lived a boy named Janek. Orphaned young, He had only a flock of sheep and an old wooden flute left by his father. Yet, though poor, Yannick's heart was rich with kindness. Each day, Yannick tended his sheep on the hillside. He played the flute, and its song was so pure that birds hovered above, children gathered to listen, and even the restless sheep grew calm. One spring evening, as the sky blushed with sunset, 3 weary travelers appeared. Their cloaks were torn, their steps heavy, and their faces hollow with hunger. Yannick had only a small crust of bread for supper, yet, without hesitation, he broke it into 3 pieces and gave it to them. The stranger's eyes shone with gratitude. Suddenly, golden light wrapped around them. Before Yannick's astonished eyes, the strangers revealed themselves as radiant angels, their wings gleaming in the dusk. "Kind boy," said the first angel, "you gave away your last bread." "For such kindness," said the second, "you shall not remain empty-handed." The third placed in his hands a flute carved from pale birchwood. It glowed faintly, warm, as if alive. "This is a magic flute. When it sings, no lie can endure. Truth will burst forth." Before Yannick could speak, the angels rose into the sky and vanished. He stood alone in the fading light, clutching the flute, his heart pounding. Days later, dark news spread. The governor of the land was riding toward the village. He was known as a greedy tyrant who squeezed peasants until they starved. The villagers trembled. They had no grain left, yet the governor demanded more taxes, even the seed they had saved for planting. That evening, the governor arrived on a black horse, cloaked in gold-embroidered velvet. Soldiers marched behind, spears gleaming, boots thundering on the earth. The villagers knelt in fear, but Yannick stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. He lifted the birchwood flute to his lips. A clear, piercing melody rose. The governor opened his mouth to command, yet instead words spilled that he could not stop. "I steal from the people," he shouted. "I hide their gold beneath my house." His face twisted in horror at his own confession. Gasps swept through the villagers. Yannick played on, stronger, brighter. The soldiers staggered, then blurted their truths as well. "We never wished to harm the people. We only obeyed." The people, hearing the truth, rose with courage. "No more chains! No more lies!" they cried. They drove the governor and his men away, stripped of power. That night, they searched the governor's mansion and uncovered the hidden treasure, grain, silver, and gold stolen over the years. The wealth was returned to the villagers. Hungry bellies were filled, children laughed again, and the fields promised a new harvest of hope. The flute was placed in the village hall as a sacred treasure. Whenever disputes arose, its song was played, and no falsehood survived its voice. Yannick returned to his sheep, but from that day, his music was known as the Song of Justice. And people whispered through the years, "The greatest power is not gold nor swords, but truth and courage."